think, to their surprise. All right, looks like we have a quorum, so we might as well get started, and I will try and be efficient. I think we have really three major topics, but let's start by doing a roll call and then doing the minutes. So Marty,
Here.
Dick,
Here.
Nina,
Here.
Mish,
Here.
Sarah,
Aye.
and Gavin.
Here.
And I am here, so we definitely have a quorum. Mish distributed the minutes. Any comments, corrections? Great. If none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Great. And a second.
Second.
Great. Marty?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Nina?
Yes.
Mish?
Yes.
Sarah?
Aye.
Gavin?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. So great. So the minutes are accepted. So why don't we start? Robin Justino's here, who's the HR director for the town, and she's attending at our request to answer some of the questions. If I'm sure everybody recalls the presentation from the personnel board about the cost of living adjustment. That prompted a number of questions people had about kind of the challenges of personnel management in the town, things like how we track turnover, those issues around just recruitment in general. So we asked Robin to be here for this discussion. I'm going to make one comment though before we start, and that is that Gavin, do you want to explain the discussion with Mike Blanchard today, or should I?
You're welcome to.
All right. Mike Blanchard brought up the fact that Gavin's wife is an employee of the town, working for the Council on Aging, and that in that capacity, it represents a conflict of interest for Gavin to make recommendations about the cost of living increase, or specifically about the Council on Aging budget. So we had a discussion. Michael spoke to Nina, and I think what we decided as the most reasonable thing was for Gavin to recuse himself from discussions specifically of the cost of living increase, and also recuse himself from discussions and voting on the Council on Aging budget. Otherwise, I thought it was fine for him to participate in all other activities of the Warrant Committee. So I'm going to say this is not a discussion of the cost of living increase specifically. We're talking more generally about the hospital, about the town's personnel management issues. But when we do speak specifically about the COLA recommendation, Gavin will recuse himself. Okay, so why don't I open it then for discussion? Robin, I think this can be relatively freeform. There were several questions that came up. People had a few issues that they wanted to know about how the town tracks turnover, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to throw it open to the committee members and ask them to ask you specifically about these issues.
Okay, great. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me here. This is my first time before the Warrant Committee, and it's nice to put a face with a name and to meet you all. So I will answer your questions to the best of my ability, and if I don't have the answer, I'm happy to get back to you.
Great. So, floor is open.
Would you like me to start and tell you a little bit about how I track the changes within the personnel, track all the employee changes?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, am I allowed to share my screen?
I can make it so that you can share. Hang on just a second. You should be able to now.
Okay, thank you.
I thought some people had some specific questions. I just can't remember. I don't know. I can't
Okay.
remember what happened 20 minutes ago, it seems like lately, but yeah.
So
I think there were specific questions, but they'll probably be, people's memories will be refreshed as we go through this.
Okay.
So I didn't go back all that far, but I went back to some of the recruitment that took the longest. I went back to 7/25. So if you look here, on 5/15/25, a police officer terminated. We were able to hire someone on 7/10, and it took 56 days to hire. Assistant town accountant retired in January, and we posted that twice, and we still have not hired an assistant town accountant. This is the climate. This is what all the municipalities are facing. We're all competing for the same positions, and especially in the finance section, it's difficult. Library is another area that turns around pretty frequently. Head of adult services, person terminated. They left to go to a different community with more money and less of a commute. And that took 59 days to hire. Conservation administrative assistant, she was here for 28 years. She retired on 7/21. And it took 74 days to hire a part-time conservation admin. And that's saying with experience. Town accountant, we posted the position. She terminated back in July. We posted the position twice, and I am so grateful, and I really think it's due to that 4-day work week that we have 2 really good candidates right now, and we're interviewing. So hopefully we can make a decision soon. But still, it took from 7/23 to October, which is right around 74 days. You can read the rest of the positions, town planner. This is one I'd like to note that in order to recruit qualified, quality candidates, we have to, if they're coming from another community, they have 20 years of experience, then we have to go to the personnel board and request top step. And we've had to do that for a few positions. The town planner, there was another one too. I believe it will be the town accountant.
The treasurer.
The treasurer, thank you. I'm like, how come I don't have that on here? There it is. And the treasurer took 360 days to recruit. DPW master mechanic, very difficult position. That was 245 days. Heavy equipment operator, groundskeeper, 224 days. These are just challenges that we're facing, and we have to make Dover as attractive as possible. And I'm glad we're piloting the 4-day work week. And if we can keep our compensation and our benefits relevant, it will be easier for us to attract quality.
And Robin, do we have any sense of how Dover compares to other towns in terms of our ability to recruit or our turnover?
we're all the same. It really doesn't matter the size of the community. I mean, if they can offer much higher salaries or remote work, it's things that smaller communities can't offer. However, Dover offers opportunities. You know, if we're a small town. You have the opportunity to do more and all work together. You learn a lot more, but it's also it's building a team. So I think that's the benefit Dover has, but we're all in the same boat. Anyone who's recruiting for finance positions, we're all struggling, or assessors. Luckily, we're not recruiting for that, but that's another difficult position.
So what do you attribute that to, Robin? If it's not the salary and it sounds like the working conditions are pretty good, what do you attribute it to?
COVID.
COVID.
After COVID, it's it was very hard to get people to come back into the office or to even apply for positions. But it is the generations, there's attrition, you know, people are retiring. To recruit the younger, like the millennials, it's difficult because we can't offer the benefits that they're specifically looking for. We can't have someone come in and work 7 to 1 and then go in for a 4-hour lunch and then work until midnight. You know, municipalities just can't do that. So it's a struggle.
I'm curious about the groundskeeper request for remote work. How does that happen?
No, I will say the DPW positions do not request remote work, but the town engineer, this is a position we had posted on 7/1. We thought we had a good candidate. The person had 23 years of experience, but they requested a salary higher than our top step in that grade. And then they wanted much more vacation time than we could start with, as well as working from remotely 2 days a week. And
Mhm.
when you're a one-man band, you just can't do that.
Did you find that request to be something a comparable town to ours would have met, or did it seem sort of not reasonable for any town our size?
So the person is working for a town. It's not reasonable for a town our size. They are working for another town, but they have a staff of 10, you know, where this person would be the only person doing this job.
Does Dover offer less vacation time than most places?
No, no, we're very comparable. It's just what she had earned over the 23 years.
Oh, I see.
We could start with 20 days vacation, 4 weeks, depending on how many years of service she had, but she was looking for 33. So it was a little more difficult.
Other questions? Robin, how much do you think this is pay scale and how much other aspects of working in Dover?
I think that's a really hard question to answer. It depends on what the person's looking for. You know, if they're looking for an opportunity to make a difference, to actually have a little bit of autonomy, then it could be the perfect position. I think for a lot of the positions, we're pretty comparable, but it's just we have to expand our pay scale a little bit. It depends on what we're recruiting for.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say 50-50. I can't say it's hard. It depends on the position.
Right.
Is the expectation that the employer keeps up with the cost of living? Is that
Yes.
the expectation across the board?
Well, you want to always be competitive in the labor market. You know, because we are all of our comparable communities are pulling from the same people, like probably within an hour's drive. you know, where if I have a town accountant in Needham and Needham is all, I mean, Natick and Needham is also looking for one. Two totally different communities, but we're pulling that same person. We both want that same person. So it is important to remain competitive.
So would you say it would be a detriment to your ability to hire if we are not keeping up, then what, if we're not keeping up with the cost of living increase?
It's not just the cost of living increase, it's the whole compensation wage schedule. That's so every year, a salary survey is done. And it's with our 13 comparable communities. And every 5 years, we do a class, it's called the classification and compensation to make sure all the jobs are graded fairly compared to the other communities. So, and right now we're going through a classification and compensation study just to make sure we're right within range.
Other questions?
Hi, Robin. Sarah Kadena Kinney. A pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us. On the inflation versus the 2.5% guideline, just seeing since most departments are already facing contractual and inflationary pressures over the 2.5%, particularly in the salaries and the utilities. Does our guidance allow for departments to exceed 2.5% if they fully justify it, or is the 2.5 meant as a hard cap?
You know what? That's a Robin Hunter question. I saw her on here.
I
She's
just wanted to thank you. No, I wanted to understand how much flexibility we're giving them when they build their budgets.
as far as that goes, I don't know.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Robin? If not, thank you very much, Robin. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. And feel free to email me if you have any additional questions.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
So, so I know the Board of Selectmen discussed the Personnel Board recommendations last night. Robin, do you want to summarize just what you and the Board of Selectmen decided about the COLA?
So we did not make a recommendation because, or vote on it. We were waiting for your recommendation. There was discussion around it. You know, we discussed the fact that this year we are expecting a very rough budget. Our revenues go up by 2.5%. We know our healthcare is going to increase by somewhere between 14 to 18%. So just to put that into perspective, we are looking at an increase of 1.5 million on the revenue side of the equation. We already know approximately 450,000 of that is going to go to healthcare unless we can find ways to reduce that. We also are working through what our statutory, you know, what are the increases we're obligated to already. We know that capital has come in or is coming in somewhere around 7 million, and we have to do debt on that. So it's going to be a really rough year for us. You know, the personnel board went through what their process, and again, you know, they said it's difficult for them. You know, they're making a recommendation based upon what they see, but they recognize that they're making a recommendation in a vacuum, so to speak, because you don't know what the total budget looks like. We also have negotiations this year with all three of our unions, And this is going to be a data point, whatever we decide on. So, you know, the personnel board had suggested that this was somewhere around $150,000 or $160,000 increase to the budget. But this will be a data point for all the other unions, and 80% of our costs are human resource costs, approximately. So, you know, we need to balance all of these pressures. So they said that they understood the pressures that the budget holds, but again, you know, they feel strongly that 3.25% was the right number. Dave Havland asked if they could go back and give us sort of a 5-year trend of what the increases have been, the COLA increases, and then also for us just to look at some of these inflation numbers that they're using, you know, understanding that inflation numbers really depend on, you know, the Boston numbers were different from the Cambridge numbers, were a little different from the Newton numbers. But again, these are just data points that they're using. So they were a little flustered about pulling that together. So Chris is going to pull that together for us, just so that we can see, you know, we all acknowledge, I don't think COLA, this is my own personal opinion. I do not think what we give as COLA will be a reason for anybody to leave. I think what we really need to make absolutely certain of is that our salaries are competitive. And as we've gone out to the market for some of these key positions to bring people in with the experience that we need, because let's face facts, we have a bit of a mess here that we're trying to clean up. We have to go to the top of the range and match higher salaries than we had. So this is just the conversation we had. You know, you look at the data, and not all the data is has come in yet, but if you look at the average of the COLAs in the towns that they looked at, it's somewhere between 2.8 and 3%.
Yeah, I was told last week that the Sherburne just approved a 3.2%.
Yeah, but Sherborne in the past has done stupid things. Excuse my language. You know, I don't know. They're telling me that their budget is extremely tight. So, you know, and again, it would be an interesting exercise. I was actually thinking of this today, to go and look at some of these key positions and see, because it has to be in there on their website, what they're paying versus what we're paying, because I think Sherborne tends to pay less than we do. So, but just again, these are just data points, and we're building a team. We have a good team. We want to keep the team. We've been extremely creative in combining positions, which has, in the long run, saved us money, like what we did with the assistant town administrator and the finance director. And not only that, it challenged an individual that we wanted to keep. So, you know, we're going to continue to look at those things, but regulatory changes, you know, are now requiring that we really have a full-time engineer, you know, town engineer, because we just don't have the types of expertise that we need anymore. So it's just a challenge, you know.
Marty.
And I mean, and that's what I said. It's a struggle, because what we decide needs to be fair. We want it to be fair, but we also need to be cognizant of where our budget's going to come in and how much wiggle room we have, because basically we have this formula that's out of balance. We get 2.5% on the revenue side, and our expenses are going up by more than that. And so how do you close the gap? I mean, I don't think there's an appetite in town for an override. So we're just, as Chris and I have met a couple of times, and as we pulled together the budget, we're also going to be looking at the budget and seeing which items that are in the budget are kind of nice to have and levers that we may be able to pull because my back of the envelope estimate, I think we're going to come in somewhere around 8 or 9% increase with everything I know today.
Marty.
Does that include the health insurance, that
Yep.
89%? So help me understand the health insurance program for Dover Town employees, I assume is similar to other towns and maybe even part of the union negotiation contract.
Right. So we have been very creative and very fortunate. We have really good relationships with our unions. About 5 years ago, we began to offer a high deductible plan coupled with a healthcare savings account in order to incentive that reduced our overall premium somewhere around 30%. In order to attract employees to go to the high deductible plan, we offered in the first couple of years a higher contribution to the healthcare savings account because we wanted to make sure that employees were neutral if they if there was some healthcare catastrophe, we wanted to make sure that they had sufficient funds in the healthcare savings account to take care of those deductibles. So actually, one of the questions I asked Robin and Chris to pull together for me was to understand what percentage of employees, and this would include the teachers, are on the high deductible plans versus the non-high deductible plans, and see if maybe we market them again, and maybe we do another push to try and get employees to move over to those plans.
And when you did that, starting 3 or 4 years ago, has the take-up increased, stayed the same, or declined?
And that's the I don't know. And that's why I asked them to look at that. We got a really high adoption rate. We really spent a lot of time making sure that our employees were educated. It actually helped employees because their contribution towards the premium was lower because the premiums went down. And we were extremely fortunate because the teachers union was very open to doing this. And we didn't have to give anything back.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of double-digit increases in premium is going to force towns, I think, to describe this as unsustainable, and there has to be modifications, as you've already tried with the high deductible linked with an HSA. But this would be I think, the crisis or the opportunity to raise
Right.
that issue. I'm sure there'll be
Right.
resistance, right? But
And I said again, and really, I have to thank Gavin because I had a conversation with him on Monday just talking about comp philosophy. And he asked me a question about the healthcare plan, and it jogged my memory that it's actually probably a good idea to see what the adoption rate is and if there's an opportunity again, since we're facing somewhere between a 14 to 18% increase. But we've heard this before, but I do expect us to have I would be surprised if we didn't have a double-digit increase. And that's a significant piece of our budget and certainly a benefit that we need to offer to employees. And I can't remember what the employee contribution is versus the town, but again, it is substantial, and I'll get that as well.
and I assume there's some type of health insurance plan design consultant.
Right, and that's who helped us educate they did a phenomenal job. We we had examples so employees could see, if you're a family, if you're single, if you went to this plan, how you would save on the premiums, so your take home pay would be more, and then just how the healthcare savings account.
Yeah, and in this environment, when you're expecting 11 to 14%, I suspect that consultant is getting a lot of pressure from people like
Right,
you
right.
and other towns to come up
Right.
with something creative.
Right, but I felt a little bit remiss because five years ago, it was something that we were really pushing or educating employees on. So I really do, that conversation jog my memory. And again, this may be a potential opportunity to get more people on a high deductible plan. And try again, because and see if we can maybe save on that increase, because every nickel is going to help us. I mean, there are a lot of things we're going to have to do that we're not, we're going to have hard conversations with all departments, just because it's such a tough year. I'm not sure we can give everybody all the capital that they want this year or over the next 3 years. So, it's just the reality we're in. I mean, there's just nothing we can do.
Yeah, well, the tough part
No,
is
and I
people
don't know, there was an interesting article, I think it was in the Globe 2 or 3 days ago, about towns were going out for overrides, and it's a tough sell to get an override, to have your taxpayers pay for your override.
because they're experiencing the same kinds of increases in all their
Exactly.
expenses.
Everybody's experiencing the same thing. So it's just, I just think, and that is why I said to Chris, we have to have a full budget by January 1st. And I understand there's going to be placeholders in it, and we can highlight the placeholders, but we really need to understand what this bogey is that we need to fill.
Other comments? Do people feel prepared to vote on the recommendation of the Personnel Board? Do you feel like you have enough information?
Woody, I looked back over the past, after the select board meeting yesterday, I tried to look back over the last 5 years of increases, just what had been done in Dover. And I just couldn't see any time that we had done 3.25. It seemed like it went from 2 to 2.5 to 3 to 3. And is that right, Robin? Do you know that this
Yeah.
would,
I mean, I mean, some of this stuff has come back to haunt me because I put it in place. But we've always tracked the inflationary environment. And we've looked at the ECI, the CPI, Social Security, and they're just data points that help. None of those are right, but they're just data points to help you come in a reasonable level. At some point in the past, we were trying to do even more because we felt as though the employees were not paid as well as other employees in the same position. And we we decided that that was just arbitrary. You really just need to do these salary surveys more frequently. Just being out in the market tells you even better what what you need to pay employees. So over the last few years, we have just really tried to track the inflationary environment. And if this is just my personal opinion, but when I look at that, 3.25 is just not, I'm the CFO of a company. I know in my industry what people are budgeting for as increases, and it's not even 3%. I mean, you're starting to see the market loosen up, and all companies, even, we're facing double-digit healthcare increases.
Mhm.
Are we expected a yes or no, or are we expected to come back with a recommendation if it's not 3.25?
You can come up with a recommendation. You can say, we understand. I don't think the personnel board has been arbitrary in any way. I
Mhm.
think they looked at the data and they're trying to do the right thing. And as Sue Jeremiah said, in a sense, they're the ones, they feel that they need to advocate the most for the employees. But you could make a recommendation of a different amount. Um, the Board of Selectmen is looking for Warrant to make a recommendation to them, and then ultimately we're going to have to decide. But I just think this is a tough position that we're in. Like, I say to myself, 2.5 is too low. 3.25 seems a little on the high side. I know we're not talking a lot of money, but we do have negotiations that are going on, and we need to think about, what is the right number for our employees.
Sounds like 3% from what you just said.
So let me,
Could I also perhaps make a suggestion? You could come up with a suggested range that might give the Board of Selectmen a little bit more, freedom of maneuver without causing problems for you. That's another possibility. You don't have to come up with an explicit number.
Particularly since we're at the front end of it, Cam, right? Gives you the
Exactly.
flexibility to adjust depending on how everything turns out, right?
Mm-hmm. And Robin, I hope I'm not sort of interfering with what you were saying.
We
But,
need to be really careful because this could be construed as a meeting, so, of the board.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I was just sort of thinking in terms of given my experience with the Warrant Committee and how we've approached it in the past when I was on the committee. And there might be sort of other possibilities of coming up with an upfront number and perhaps considering an adjustment if things don't turn out to be as bad as we thought they were. But there are different approaches to it, and it's really difficult at the moment to make a sort of firm judgment towards the upper end just simply because of our challenges.
so maybe the way to start would be to ask show of hands of people who would support a 2.5% increase. Ish,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that if a window makes sense, we could do between 2.5 and 3, I guess, if they want us to make a recommendation, or we could say that 3.25 is something we can't commit to right now.
Yep. How many people would support the 3.25? Dick? And how many people would support a range? Okay. Seems like there's relatively broad support for a range. My sense is that 2.5 may be lower than most people want to go, and 3.25 would be higher than most people would go.
Right, and if you look at the comp numbers that have come in, 2.5 would be really on the low side.
Yep.
Woody, if I could jump in here, before we indicate support, can I just clarify, are we being asked to commit to the 3.25 tonight, or are we just gauging whether it's worth modeling as one scenario? I want to make sure we're not locking in a number before we see the full budget impact and healthcare contract assumptions.
Well, we're being asked to make a recommendation before we're going to have a full budget, basically. That's the challenge. What there seems to be unanimity that the budget is going to be extremely tight this year.
Hopefully we're wrong.
I mean, it seems hard to believe given what's happening with healthcare costs in particular, and just some of the other issues that are going on. The fact that a number of contracts are being negotiated, that if it's hard to imagine we're not going to be not going to be squeezed. The other thing I might comment is that from the data that Robin presented this evening, it appears that the financial compensation is not an insignificant part of the determinant as to who we hire and who stays, but it's by no means the only issue. It appears from just my own personal interactions with people and some other comments that the 4-day work week, for example, has substantially influenced job satisfaction in the townhouse. And we know from a variety of sources that flexibility and the opportunity for remote work make a big difference to people. So those things are all variables. The distance you have to travel to work, for example, are things that have played a role in some of the departures and in some of the recruitments. So it's not just salary that makes the difference. There are other things that the town has done or can do that may influence our ability to compete.
You know, and I will just add, Mike has righted his ship. We had a bad reputation before. You know, people didn't really want to come work in the town because they saw all the turnover that was going on. And Mike and Chris have really been able to right the ship. I would say the hiring of Robin has really helped a lot with in connection with employee satisfaction. And there are some non-financial things we could do to ensure that, you know, the employees are happy. So for instance, we voted to give everyone the day after Thanksgiving off. It's not an official holiday, but nobody really goes to the townhouse, and it's just the right thing to do for our employees. And we did it for the first time last year, and they were very, very, very appreciative of the 4-day weekend. So these are, you know, little things that we can try do as well.
Yep.
Because as Robin said, like some of the positions, you just can't offer remote work.
Right. So to go back to it seems like there was pretty strong support for recommending a range, and it feels as though 2.5 would be lower than most people would find acceptable. 3.25 is higher. Does someone want to make a motion for a range that they think would be acceptable?
2.75 to 3.
That
Can I have
sounds
some discussion of that?
That was what I would have come up with as well. I feel like it's doesn't have a stingy sound to it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
And
I think having a 3 in there sounds feels good.
Yeah.
I would go higher, honestly, if we could, but it just seems like this is not the place we would want to skimp in our people, and retaining them and attracting the best talent could, pay dividends in the long run. If there are other areas of the budget where we could really become austere. One question I have is just like, what is this costing us? Like, how many open positions do we have, or do we know what we think it costs? Are we paying recruiters, or is it simply just posting a job? And
So we have paid recruiters for some positions. We have Robin. I asked Robin the question, would a lower COLA or our history of COLAs make a person leave Dover or not accept a job in Dover? And she said no.
yeah,
She said, the salaries need to be competitive. And by the same token, I think our COLA should be competitive. It it doesn't need to be higher. We like all other towns are facing a very unique financial climate right now. The other thing, we have no idea. We have relied heavily on grants. We don't know if those are still going to be available to us for some of the things we do.
right.
I hate to be a doomsdayer, but I think we have to have all these different scenarios because I mean, it doesn't take much to realize when your revenue's going up by 2.5% and your expenses are going up by more, you're going to have a problem ultimately. So,
Yeah, and we don't have enough certainty at this point to know whether we can afford that, right? And you also don't know where the other towns are going to be, right? I assume employees talk to their counterparts in other places, and if we're too low, you're going to hear about it pretty quickly. People may even act on it, right?
right. And I think we definitely, right now from what we know, I think the suggestion of 2.75 to 3 is right in the ballpark. And, from a budget modeling standpoint, we could start with the lower amount and or start with the higher amount and know what the lower amount could be. Again, it's not gonna break the bank. It's not a huge amount of money, but
It sends a message.
right, but it's everything, it's additive. I mean, there's so many other things, right?
So Marty, do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a recommendation of 2.75 to 3%, subject to whatever the final budget looks like.
Does anyone want to second that?
yeah,
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve and recommend to the Board of Selectmen that the cost of living adjustment be between 2.75 and 3% this next budget cycle. Nina, you want to vote?
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
Dick,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mish,
yes.
and I'm a yes, and Gavin is abstaining. All right, great. So that we'll end the discussion of the COLA. I just wanted to review. This is in the guidance letter that I sent around. But I just wanted to review the timeline that we're talking about for this coming year, and in particular, I wanted to point out two things. One is that As I said last time, we're trying to move the whole process up of 10 days to 2 weeks. So we have a scheduled meeting of the Sherburne Advisory, the Regional School Committee, and the Warrant Committee Wednesday, February 11th. That'll be at the middle school. And then to get in our reviews and meetings with the department heads, I tried to work around that meeting and the school vacation week. So what I'm suggesting is that we have a second meeting the week of February 11th on Tuesday, February 10th. That would be a warrant committee meeting. That would be the first meeting with the department heads. We then have the following week, I believe, is school vacation week, starting the 19th. And then or start not starting the 19th, but the next week would be that we would meet would be the February 24th and 25th, which are Tuesday and a Wednesday. So that would give us 3 evenings to meet with the department heads, the 10th, the 24th, and the 25th, which would be 1 evening more and would get us about almost 2 weeks earlier than our final meeting last year. We'd then use the meeting March 4th for the final review and also to consider all the articles and the citizens petitions before open hearing, which is currently scheduled for the 16th, but which will hopefully be moved up to the 9th. So any questions, comments about that schedule? It means it means that we're still doing our meetings in the evenings as opposed to trying to do an all-day meeting the way the Sherburne Advisory does it. They use a Saturday and have an all-day Saturday meeting. I think for our for the people who work in the for the town, Michael's pretty strongly of the opinion that people would prefer to devote an hour in the evening than to commit time on a weekend. And I think from my own standpoint, that's probably, I probably feel the same. So unless there is are objections, I'm going to leave that as the proposed schedule. Then I did want to just mention, most of you remember there was quite a bit of tension last year primarily between the Sherburne Advisory and the regional school committees / the schools over the way money had been redirected from their I think the project was purchasing air handlers for the high school. There was a lot of back and forth. The Warrant Committee was, I think, somewhat supportive of the concerns of the Sherburne Advisory, more about the fact that there wasn't a lot of communication between the school committee and the towns about the need to rebudget the money. This was in the setting of the original estimate for the air handlers was $1 million less than the final bid. So they had to come up with an additional $1 million, which they did from their own funds and from redirecting some funds that had previously been approved for a boiler, which they turned out not to need. Anyway, this is all background to the fact that in the setting of that kind of that tension and let's say almost conflict, Marty and I attended the Association of Town Finance Committee meeting in the fall of 24, heard a presentation about how useful it was for town finance committees to meet more regularly with school committees, because there is tension kind of between those two bodies in almost every town. And last year, in response to that, we set up what turned out to be a series of meetings between Sherburne Advisory leadership. Marty and I attended, and the leadership of the regional school committee, Dawn and Beth McCoy, all attended. And I thought it actually was a very successful initiative. It ended up substantially reducing the tension among the different groups, and I think played a significant role in the degree to which the Sherburne Advisory supported the new turf field at the high school. If you recall, the Sherburne Advisory voted overwhelmingly to support the turf field. The Board of Selectmen in Sherburne actually voted against it and never did support it. And I think the strength of the Sherburne Advisory support was instrumental in their town meeting approving it. And if you haven't taken a look at the new turf field, you should actually go look at it. It is really amazing looking. We thought it'd be a useful thing to do again this year. I think 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, I met with Stephen Bonders, the chair of Sherburne Advisory, for coffee, and then the following night we had a meeting with leadership of Sherburne Advisory, leadership of the regional school committee, Dawn, and just as a get acquainted, there are some issues that Dawn brought up in terms of the reporting around special ed funds that she's going to present at a soon to all of us. Really just have to do with the way those funds are accounted for. But I think at least there was a chance for people to get acquainted, and we'll probably can have 2 or 3 more meetings before February 11th, just to continue to open lines of communication. Marty?
I was just curious when you mentioned the special education funds, with everything that's going on in the federal and state government, is there any anticipated issues on the circuit breaker funds that we typically receive each year?
You know, I asked Dawn about that, whether she thought the activity at the federal level would impact our circuit breaker reimbursement. And she said that at least at this point, the communication with the state is that they don't believe there will be any impact. So
Good.
they're still expecting 75% reimbursement for out-of-district costs above, I think it's 52,000 per pupil, something like that. And 60% reimbursement for transportation costs.
Those dollars were recorded last year, right? This is just the actual receipt of the cash,
Yeah,
right?
those came in last year, but that's what the state is indicating is going to be reimbursement for the next year as well.
Okay.
And Dawn seemed to feel that the state was expressing confidence that they would have the money to cover the costs.
So my understanding is that the funding for this is coming from the millionaires tax. And so
That's-
at least
That's
for
the
the
belief,
next,
yeah.
and the state just collected far more than what they were expecting. So for next year, people feel comfortable, but as, you know, I don't know what the impact's gonna be of some of these other federal programs or funds not coming to the state, and they may have to move some of the money around. But for now, there's been no indication from the state, based upon conversations with our reps and Dawn, that, you know, this is something that they plan to cut, that reimbursement. So.
Okay, last issue is the guidance letter. I sent around a draft. I've gotten back some feedback from several people. I should say that the draft that I did send around, it was the work of the guidance letter working group to a great extent. It was not me exclusively. So I think most of the comments I've gotten back have been pretty positive. Are any other questions or issues about the draft that was distributed? Right. If not, I think I'm going to ask for a vote to support it, pending the editorial changes that I've gotten, and I'll think none of those are going to be significant enough that should change the way people feel about the letter. So if there are no questions or comments, could I get a motion to approve the guidance letter as it will be modified?
I move for approval of the guidance letter as is expected to be modified.
I have a second.
Or second.
All right. Nina,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
Dick.
I'm actually going to abstain because I haven't looked at it, or I'm not sure if you sent it to me and I've got it buried somewhere.
All right, I'll send it to you again, but
Yeah.
we can consider you to abstain at this point, and then
Yeah.
send me your comments after you take a look at it.
Sure.
Just
Thanks.
on that, I think some people have put a MALCOLM, not MALCOM, because I did see that on one of the other email chains. So you
Yeah.
might not be actually sending it to his Dover, Mass email. So just double check the spelling.
Yeah, I
On
think-
that, I had Chris update the web. Chris, they fixed the website, and it was a couple places wrong on the Dover Town, and we worked on that with them just to get it buttoned up there too. And so your email links as well should work now, Dick.
Yeah. Oh, I've been getting your emails, and Gavin, I've been getting yours. Now you know what my life has been like.
Yes, I'm
It's so
used
much
to
better
creative
than it
spellings
used
as
to be,
well.
right? All right, so I'm going to complete the roll. Kevin,
Yes.
Mish,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. All right, great. So I'm
Was this something that I should be voting on or no?
yes, I think you can vote on this. This was for the guidance letter, not for the COLA.
Then yes.
Yeah.
Can I make one quick question? It's different than in prior ones because we're concerned about the situation. Is there going to be some sort of, either when it's given to them, some sort of discussion, Michael doing it? Because if it is so different, if it's not appreciated that this is a very different letter than in prior ones, we might not get the intended reaction.
Yeah,
So I was just curious. I don't know if it's you, if it's Mike Blanchard has some sort of sit down with the department heads, or if this is more, hey, each of the warrant committee groups who's assigned to it really does need to sit down. But how do we make sure that there's alignment on not just the letter, but the spirit of the letter that's being sent?
Yeah, I think I spoke to Michael and to Chris about it, and they would like to first of all would like to meet with us to talk about the templates, but would also they're intending to speak to people about both the guidance letter and some of the new processes they're putting in place in terms of developing the budget
Okay.
and doing it all kind of in context. So I
Okay,
think
great. No,
they're
I wasn't sure of what the historical was. I'd just be afraid of just sending it if it was just sent without having that editorial commentary
yeah,
to make
I
sure.
think they definitely are gonna spend some time with people talking about what the challenges are gonna be this year and how there are a number of things that we put into the guidance letter that are different in terms of the expectations than have been created in the past.
Mhm.
So I think in order, if we're going to get people to actually comply with those, it'll take some pretty direct communication, which Chris and Michael intend to do.
Fantastic.
All right. Did I finish the roll call? If I did, I wanted to mention that I was not going to have a meeting next week, but would like to have a meeting on the Wednesday, the 19th, which is the week before Thanksgiving. And then we'd be off until December. So I'll send around an agenda for that, and I'll also send around the final draft of the guidance letter to everyone. And I think that's it. So I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Great. A second.
Second,
Thank you. Nina,
yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
Dick,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and Mish.
Yes.
And I am definitely a yes. Okay, great. So I'll send those things out and then meet again in 2 weeks from tonight.
All right.
All right,
All right,
thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye.